where is it going to go down, right?
Hmm.
So, the action yesterday got back above its 50-day moving average line. I think that's promising. Now, you'd still have to be ready for this could be an area of resistance. It could just turn right around here at the 50-day moving average line and go back down. I think that would look very negative for the market. I think then it could go down further. But if we hold here, and I think we have a very clear kind of line in the sand at Monday's low, I think if we started, undercutting, maybe even the closes of Monday, I might start trimming back a little bit because it's again looking like that move above the 50 is failing. But again, right now, I think you have to go with where the market is. And right now, the market is showing that the thesis of buy on the dips is still strong. And if we can get the S&P 500 to also get back above the 50-day moving average line, I think that'll be more positive. So we have some hurdles, right? Okay, let's get the S&P 500 above the 50-day. Let's get the NASDAQ above the 21-day, get it back above 15,000. So I think there's some hurdles that we have to cross here, but right now we are on our way.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like you mentioned the 21-day because there was a lot of resistance. There was support, but you could imagine getting above this area and sort of a trend line would be sort of, you could argue, breaking in a trend line because we haven't really broken the trend line, the downtrend. I mean, you could argue,
right. And I mean, like the 50-day moving average line, that's still in an uptrend. It's flattening, but it's not it's not in a downtrend. So yeah, I think overall the trend is still intact, and that's why we were thinking about going to market in correction on Monday, but because of the way it closed, we held off. We said, okay, let's just see where we go from here. And so far, it looks like we're trying to turn things around. And it's interesting that the 21-day moving average line is again, you also have to get above that 15,000 level. The round numbers still offer sometimes that support and resistance of those big psychological numbers.
So Harold, how much more aggressive have you gotten in the? Did you buy a lot on Wednesday, or did you do nothing, or what was your mindset going there?
Well, yesterday I was off work yesterday, so I wasn't around the market as much as I'd like. But if I would not have been very aggressive because of just the way the market's been behaving the last week and a half. I also been looking at the NASDAQ. If you pull up the NASDAQ and go to a 30-minute chart.
Gotcha. I'm going to go over just to just use this.
Yeah, go to MarketSmith.
Oh, tried to switch it. Hang on. Here's the NASDAQ. Okay.
Yeah, so you see we've got that gap, and you see that gap, excuse me, corresponds right at that 15,000 level. And if you hold your mouse down, you'll see that, man, you got a lot of resistance right at that area. So that's we're not out of the woods yet. I think we got to get it up above that 15,000 before we can see any kind of headway to the upside again.
And this is basically where that 21-day, 21-day line is, kind of thing and all that stuff. So yeah, so that's an important area. So I'll have to be looking at that. And Ali, what sectors are there any sectors in particular? Because there was a broad-based rally there. Was there anything in particular that you're seeing really showed strength?
Yeah, I've been looking to add to some of my winning positions. I talked before about how some of the mega cap tech stocks that I'm in, Microsoft, Google, took the opportunity on those pullbacks to add to some of those positions. Snap also in the internet content group. I'm looking at that one, and we can talk about that one more. But I do already have a poll question, Ed, if we are able to launch that. So would love to know from the audience, what has been your biggest trading mistake recently? Not taking profits quick enough, not cutting losses quick enough, not reducing your exposure or hedging early enough, or not having patience with a strong stock. So very interested in getting the audience take on that. I think for me, not taking profits quick enough. I was in new core, and I feel like that one I would have loved to lock in more of a profit before it round trip. So that would have been nice. But I think when the market does present you these different challenges, like Monday, no doubt, was a challenge for many investors. Doing that sort of post analysis and thinking about how you can improve is something that is very crucial.
You know, I'll just tell you on my examples, like I took some profits on the way up, and that was fine. I wish I'd done more. And I sold a fair amount on Monday because I was worried about, obviously, in retrospect, that was generally a mistake, you know, and it's in hindsight, but not real. I don't feel like it was that. I didn't completely get out or anything, but I pared back because I was worried if it broke more, I was like, I need to get going out. And so it's sort of like, I don't feel like it was a bad decision, you know, and so, because obviously if the market turns up again, I'll have a chance. But Justin, were you jumping? Were you, how would you, what's your feeling on recent trades?
You know, it's funny, not taking profits quick enough, you know, certainly is the one that sticks out, even though I felt like I did a lot, you know, so, but there were still those that were like, oh man, I should have probably taken some more profits. But then there's always that one that kind of sticks out of like, oh, I should have been, you know, I should have been more patient. So in mode, you know, that was one where I did end up trimming the whole thing on that big drop that it had. You know, and leaderboard, you know, the way that leaderboard handled it was sold a little bit into the strength, and then because it didn't undercut, because it didn't close below the 50-day moving average line, or I should say the 10-week moving average line, you know, it came down really sharply. It was the biggest one-day drop. But then it ended up coming right back. I couldn't be more surprised. But you know, I did have a larger position in that, and ended up getting out of the whole thing. And so now I'm just watching it go up without me. And that's never fun, but it happens.
It happens. And, you know, like sometime it's going to do that and it'll drop 10% the next day. And then you feel like, you know, so
yeah.
But
I think, you know, as we were talking on, you know, as we were talking with leaderboard, you know, having our discussions, it's like, well, you know, you know, if we're going to wait for the close of the, you know, below the 10-week moving average line, it hasn't done it. And yeah, so I thought I was smarter than everyone else, and this time I wasn't.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I'm going to go through, you know, I'm going to end the poll. Don't want to take too long. And not taking profits quick enough was the highest number, but or not having patience with a strong stock. So it's sort of interesting. It's sort of like the two things. It's like, this is why it's so difficult, because it's like, I should have sold this stock ahead of time earlier. And it's like, I should have held it. You know, I mean, obviously, you could have tried to sell it near the top and then tried to hold it near the bottom. So they're not entirely contradictory, but it shows you the difficulty of it when some people are saying I should have taken profits faster and others saying I should have held. So it's an art and a science to try to deal with winning stocks.
And sometimes you're looking at, you know, both. You're like, oh, I should have held that one longer and I should have sold that one sooner.
Yeah. So I'm going to go take a look at a few stocks that are moving this morning. Before we get into too much here, Darden Restaurants. Harold, what do you think about Darden Restaurants here?
I mean, oh, wow, you had that gap up. So I look, what did they report earnings? So
they had earnings. So
yeah,
there's a few
okay, it looks like earnings. But if you look at what it's done pretty much all this week, it shows some relative strength.
Yeah.
You know, Monday we had that huge down day, and this is exactly what you want to look for when we had a market like we had, especially on Monday, where we had I mean, it was a complete sell-off across the board. And yet, if you look at Darden, no signs of any kind of sell-off that we had earlier this week. Now, if you like to play gap ups intraday, earnings gap, this is a good possibility.
Gotcha. I mean, the numbers are looking pretty good. Obviously, the comparisons are pretty darn easy, you know, and they're going to get more difficult after next quarter, maybe, but still, I thought it was positive in the COVID. I mean, if you were going to have a Delta COVID quarter, this would seem to have been it. But nonetheless, nice action in that regard. Just to show a couple others, this is not as the fast casual, less affected by COVID cases, but Chipotle, which had rebounded from its 10-week line, is now at a new high. Sort of this has been, I don't know, like a 15-week tight. I'm not sure how many weeks you can, it's one uninterrupted tight.
Right.
So there's that RS line is at a new high. So
another one that got support at its 10-week moving average line, held that very well. And again, it was, if you think about it, I mean, there was that big move that it had, and it just really held all of those gains and let the moving average line catch up with it.
Really
and that's